Hey, my name's Keith, and I am an alcoholic. It's really good to be here tonight. I'm glad you guys are here. And in advance, thank you all for 12. I say that in earnest, because you showing up tonight shows me that Alcoholics Anonymous works. And as the alcoholic, as the addict, I need to be reminded of that. Without this program, I wouldn't be here. And I think, well, I try not to think about it. But, a couple of my children may not be here today without this program. Our traditions talk about the unity of the program. I want this program to stay. I want it here. For my children and now for my grandchildren. They're starting to get to that magical age, that we all got to. I'm going to back up just a little bit, of course, get back to the basics, back to the start. My sobriety date is January 19th of 2010. I did have a period of sobriety prior to that, and I'll get into that in my story. Relapse is a reality. It is not a part of my recovery. Relapse for me was a major part of my addiction. Gosh. Okay. Where do we go from here? I grew up in the area over in Washington County. I hope you guys won't hold that against me that I'm from Ohio. Actually, I was born in West Virginia, so I've come full circle. When I reached 17, I had a good childhood. I really did. My parents cared for us. They took care of us. They did the best that they could to provide for us. We weren't rich by a long shot. We lived out in the boonies, smack in the middle of Wayne National Forest. I hate to talk about my age, but I grew up the old way. I grew up on a farm. We grew the garden, tended the animals, and we sustained ourselves that way. We didn't really depend on the supermarkets and whatnot. My mom was a very religious woman. My dad just kind of, he kind of followed along. Ladies, you guys know how the men are sometimes, right? Okay. We follow the example. And I think that's what he did for the most part. I don't remember my brothers. I've got 4 brothers. They were all bigger than me. One of them is a twin, and you guys are safe. He's totally opposite of what I am. We're twins born under the sign of Gemini. We were exact opposites. Some of you know I claim to be a biker. He was a Boy Scout ranger. True story. So, but in the beginning, he was right there with me. He was right there with me. And like I said, we had a really good raising up. We were provided with values, morals. We were taught, how to be decent human beings. Sometimes there's debate on whether this illness is through our DNA or if we cross a line. I don't know. It really doesn't matter to me. I think I was born with it. Because the very first time I picked up, I loved it. I loved it. I was in 5th grade. 12 years old. Holy cow. And it was just one beer. And you guys from Ohio, it was the low test stuff in those days. They had low test and high test. I guess that doesn't matter anymore. But it was just one beer. But I'm telling you what, the feeling I got when I drank that beer. We'd skip away from school. There were 3 of us. Each one of us had 3 beers, and then we'd walk back to school. You know, I don't know how it affected those guys, but man, I'm telling you what, the comfort that I felt, I was giddy. You know, energy was just incredible. You know, and I'd always kind of been a backward kid. You know, with brothers bigger than me, I had to fight for every damn thing I got, you know. And half the time I had to run just to keep getting my butt beat. I was a curious kid, you know, curious and wanted knowledge, you know. And my parents provided that too in the early years. Something happened. And I don't know if it was in me, if they recognized something in me, if my actions changed. I really don't know, because I still felt like Keith. I felt like I was doing the things that I needed to do. I was asking for help, you know, and I wasn't getting the help that I wanted. And I began to wonder about love. Was that something that I was capable of feeling? Was I ever going to feel that? But you know, that alcohol made that it kind of made that go away. I didn't have to worry about those associations. They just kind of happened. You know, I wasn't that shy kid anymore. I could become a part of my peers. And I didn't have much of a consciousness. I'm kind of the Peter Pan of my generation. I'm never going to grow up. No. You know, and that included my maturity level. You know, I was still that little kid. I didn't take responsibility early on. Of course, it took me years to see that. I thought I was doing the right things. You know, I got a job. I didn't come home from the job because I went to a party after. It didn't have my parents' permission, so, you know, that kind of blew up in my face. I didn't get that. Why, you know? I'm trying to associate. I'm trying to grow up. I'm trying to become part of society. But I was going the wrong way. And I don't know if if my parents just didn't know how to deal with it. You know, I grew up in the 60s. There was a lot of change going on. You know, we were going from an authoritarian lifestyle. And when I say authoritarian, it's like, you know, when somebody told you to do something, you either did it or there were severe consequences for not. You know. And of course, in the 60s and the early 70s, the hippie movement, we were moving more toward a liberal. Be who you are. Love. Find yourself. You know, these were very real things. You know. But they were in conflict. And there were traumas. I began to be emotionally quashed. You know, I would go to my parents with a concern or with an issue, and I would want help with it. But I was a very emotional person. We're emotional when we're drinking, right? I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm offended by the slightest little thing. I'm hurt. What's the answer? I know what the solution is. I don't necessarily need that help anymore. I'll go to that substance. That'll help me. It'll make me feel good about what I'm doing. It'll make me forget what I may be doing. That was my solution. Of course, I got married, high school. I didn't know till years later that I was blacking out in high school. I went to a class reunion. I think it was the 10th or 15th class reunion. I walked into a room, there were a bunch of people sitting around the table, and they were telling stories about this guy, and the hilarity and the ironic things that he did. They hadn't mentioned a name, but I kind of looked at him and I said, "Oh yeah, I know who you guys are talking about. You're talking about Jerry." And the room got quiet. And one person looked at me and said, "Gee, that was you." I had no idea. Blackouts before I ever got out of school. My story does include those other non-AA approved substances. Quite a bit. Probably just as much, maybe a little more, I don't know, as much as the alcohol did. But they played a role. All of it played a role in changing me from the person that I was meant to be into a person that lost all hope. All hope. Completely lost. Curled up in a position, wondering what the hell I'm going to do. Losing everything. Everything. Multiple times over. In the early days of AA, they were trying to come up with rules on who could be a member of this great society. One of those rules was you couldn't own a wristwatch. I didn't own a wristwatch for a long time. Today I got 3. None of them work, but I got 3. So I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. No, it doesn't matter the number of watches I have. I say I'm a member. I have a desire to stop using. And along with that desire to stop using, I have a desire to stop hurting people. I have a desire to stop hurting me. I have a desire to be a part of today's society. Instead of running from it and hiding from it, I want to be a part of it. Alcoholics Anonymous is part of our future, so I want to be a part of that as well. Like I said, the influence of Alcoholics Anonymous was felt clear all through my family, too. So I'm blacking out in high school, and hey, growing up, what we were told, well, what you do is you graduate high school, you get a job, you get married, and you live your life. That's pretty simple. I think I can do that. So I graduated. Well, I actually got the job first, then I graduated high school, and then I got married. Immediately had a son. Well, a year later, joined the military. There was a question on whether I was actually the alcoholic yet at that point. The book says sometimes we can straighten up for a period of time. There may be something that comes up, a new relationship, a new job, whether we're able to cut off, either cut down or stop completely. And in those days I was still, although I was blacking out, I was still able to cut back enough where that I could get in the military. New place, new job. Life's going to be better. Finally get my family off my river. Finally going to leave this dirt water town. Got what I wanted. Be careful what you pray for. Be careful what you pray for. 23rd April 1979, I left Mid-Ohio Valley, joined the military. Spent some time traveling. And in that traveling, I took me with me. Did it get better? Did it get worse? Yes. the bad outweighed the good. It wasn't so bad at first, I'm in the military, so, I'm kind of getting Article 15s. Article 15s, they just fine you a little bit of money. If they're hidden in a wallet, so it hurts, kind of gets in there a little bit. No, didn't get in there. House arrest, can't go anywhere except job and home. And, no, that didn't work. Confined to quarters, it's just another word for brick. I was locked up. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. Did it get better? No. Because now they're letting those people, I went into the military thinking it's just an 8-hour-a-day job. No. It's a 24-hour-a-day job. When they call you, you better be there. Well, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. I'm married and I got a son. I'm not ready for that responsibility either. My addictions. I want to blame it on my addictions, but you know what? I'm the person that did these things, so I have to take responsibility for that. One of the first things I was taught. Acceptance of personal responsibility. Keith, you may have been drunk on your rear end. You may have been in blackout, but you're the one that did it. Take responsibility. Hard. I didn't take responsibility. Ended up with another wife, another child. Did it get better? No. Got worse. Now the military's getting involved in my life. Bad enough that my family was involved in it. I couldn't get them out of it. I had to move. Now the military's involved in it, trying to tell me what to do. Well, they finally gave me a choice. Okay, Keith, you don't like us telling you what to do. Here's what we'll give you. We'll either give you time in the brick for these things that you've been doing, or we'll get you out. See ya. That's an easy choice for an alcoholic like me. I'm dodging the responsibility from that. Didn't stop me. Didn't stop me. Wasn't any work in this area at that time. All the factories and everything, they were just starting the financial crash in the 80s. So when I got out of the military, I'm up in Michigan. I don't want to come back home. My family's too much up in my stuff. Don't understand why I've got 2 children by 2 different mothers. They're religious people. They don't get that. And I don't know either. I'm just doing what I do. Get drunk, fall down, get up married. What the hell? How tough is it? So we jumped on a bus and spent 3 days traveling to Phoenix, Arizona. Another geographic. My first son was born in California. I was transferred from California to Michigan, where my second son was. Now I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. And everything's still. I land in Phoenix, Arizona, I get off the bus, and when you know it, I'm met by my people. Hey, welcome to Phoenix. You want to party? Yeah. I'm just trying to get started here. Oh, we'll help you. Whew. I was a country bumpkin, didn't know a thing about the city. I was afraid to go outside after dark. I would close myself in and lock the doors and not answer for anything, I mean, big city, man, it's a scary place. There's criminals out there. 30 years later, I'm on those streets, running gun battles, going into neighborhoods I shouldn't go into, carrying things I really shouldn't carry. And the consequences never came. Not the consequences that I needed. I shouldn't say that no consequences came. Of course consequences came. Divorce, multiple divorces. Loss of my children. And man, I wanted custody of my children. But you know what? I couldn't put crap down long enough to do it. And that just ate me up more. Severe thunderstorm. It's come down, Bill! And I kept going. I mean, I just kept going. You know, the consequences were there. You know, they weren't too bad. You know, all this, so far on, you know, in my mind, they weren't too bad. You know, I just lost jobs. I only lost households. I only lost relationships. You know, I know how to fix that. I'll crawl into a bottle for a couple of years until I forget it. And then I can crawl out and find another victim. Of course, that wasn't what my thinking was. You know, my thinking was life's going to get better. I'm going to make life better. I'm going to find somebody that's going to love me the way I want to be loved. And everything's going to be okay. Changed careers. I've been in computers at the start of the computer era, big part of it, in the military. And then I transferred over to finance. Spent the next 10 or 12 years in finance. And then after that, I made another big career move and went into heavy equipment construction. When I make a change, I make a change. I had a buddy, my best friend, Bill Hines in Arizona. He always said, man, Keith, I can't believe you. When you get ready to do something, you just jump in, man. It was like, yeah. And I never understood that until just recently. I read something that, I've been doing a lot of reading on Carl Jung. Some of you guys know that's probably a familiar name from the big book, world famous psychologist. But I've been reading a little bit of him. Forgot where I was going with that point. That happens a lot nowadays. Let's see. Anyway, yeah, changing jobs, losing things over and over. You know, just climb into the ball until I forgot about it, until things went away. Never really dealing with anything, you know, until I had to. And then I just, you know, complaining and yelling about, you know, well, it's their fault. They didn't send me notification. You know, I've got things to do on that day. I still wasn't taking responsibility. You know, more losses, complete households, all that stuff. Finally, in 1995, actually, I reached out. I knew that things were bad. I mean, I still didn't recognize that, you know, the military had labeled me as an alcoholic when they kicked me out, you know, back in 1981. And I'd spent the next 15 years just flying. I didn't pay any attention. I thought an alcoholic was that guy laying down in the gutter. I didn't realize that I was that guy a few times. And I couldn't stop. I reached out, I had a lot of issues, and, I talked about those kids, another one, number 3. By this time I had, there were 4 children, and their moms had gotten into trouble. And I said, no, I'm probably living the same kind of lifestyle I was. But moms had gotten in trouble when the courts decided that they didn't know who I was, so that the courts decided that I was be assigned custody of my children. Look. I want custody, but like God, I'm not ready. So I reached out. I went to the mental health services and I said, I need help, man. All of a sudden I got these 4 kids on my for, and I don't know how to do that. Help me. Well, they want to know about my drinking and drugging. What's that got to do with my family? So I went away. I didn't do what they wanted me to do. I went away. And I continued down that road. Did it get better? No. And I was in trouble, and I was still in trouble. I was still having issues in my relationship. I was still getting called on work for being too happy. All those things were still happening. I didn't get it. Finally, 2 years later, in 1995, that world came crashing down. The book talks about we build ourselves up, and then we pull everything down on our shoulders by a senseless set of spree, which is exactly what I would do over and over and over. I crawl out of the bottom. I build myself up to where I'm successful. And I have a great relationship going. Everything's right. And then through a senseless series of sprees, destroy it all. And still not think I had anything to do with it. January 1995. My current wife and I had split, and because of our lifestyle, she had moved another fella in immediately. And I went over to the house, and for once, I wasn't drunk. I wanted to talk about it. But, she didn't want me there, so she called the cops. They didn't like the fact that I was there, and basically I told them, I said, I'm not trying to keep her from, she told them I was trying to keep her from leaving. And I told them, I said, I'm not trying to keep her from leaving, but if she goes anywhere, I'm going with her. Right? Well, that's still kind of like, that's almost kidnapping. We're going to call her sergeant and see what they can do about you, unless you leave. And we don't want to do that. I don't want to leave. Keith, you need to leave. So I reached out to a guy that I used to party big time with. We painted Phoenix red on occasions. But I haven't seen him in a few years. But during that period of time before this, I kind of touched base with him a couple of times. And this day I reached out to him and let him know, hey, I'm in trouble and I need help. His response was a little funny. I didn't know quite how to take it, except that all I knew was that I needed help. He said, Keith, I don't know that I can help you, but I know a group of people that might be able to. Didn't tell me who this group of people were. Well, I'm in pretty deep stuff here. I'm looking at getting arrested, so maybe I better do what he suggests. And he gave me an address and a time and said, be there. Well, it turned out to be a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. on the way, you know, I was doing this. My wife had kicked me out, but I'm living in a little dingy one-bedroom apartment. I'm devastated. You know, I won't even sleep in my bed because, you know, we're separated. I mean, my brain is just mush. It's mush. You know, but I go to that meeting, I start to go to that meeting, and I get about halfway there, and it's like, you know what, I don't need this. I'm okay. I've dealt with this stuff before. I can do this. And I turn around and I head back to the house. Addiction calling. And then I get to, you know, I get part way back to the house, and it's like, no, you better do this, man. You really need something. You know, at that point, I'm trying to save a relationship. I'm not doing it because I want to get sober. I'm doing it to try and save my relationship, save my job, save my kids. I'm trying to do it for all these other reasons. I worked the steps. I did everything that they told me to do. I took their suggestions. But after a period of time, there was a part that and I'll talk a little more about this when I go into the steps. But there was one part that I didn't really give it my best. If I'm going to work these steps, I want to work them to the best of my ability. If I hold anything back today, and I know this from personal experience, if I hold anything back today, I'm not going to get sober. Because that stuff's going to sit there and it's going to fester, and at some point I'm going to use it as an excuse. And I'm not willing to do that today. Step one, you know, that honesty. And in the beginning, that honesty was simply about my drinking, simply about my life. You know, Keith, can you stop drinking? Why? Why would I want to do that? Well, you're kind of messed up. Just a little bit. You know, jails, hospitals, institutions, and death. You're little. Normal people don't do that stuff. The people in society, for the most part, I won't say none of them do, but for the most part, do not do those kind of things, Keith. Your life's unmanageable. What do you mean? I'm right where I want to be. 4 divorces, no custody of my children, living on the streets of Phoenix, Arizona. My life's manageable. I don't think so, Keith. I don't think so. And then they had to convince me that I was insane. That second step, you know, I have to look. My brain's moving too fast. Came to believe the power greater than themselves could restore us to sanity. They had to convince me that I was insane. And I was. Because I didn't question what that means. I remember one time asking my mom if I was crazy. She said, Keith, no, you're not, because crazy people don't ask that question. By the time I walked into these rooms, both times, I was absolute lunatic. And I didn't question whether I was insane or not. Well, I did. I fought it. I'm not crazy. But yes, I was. And that higher power, that was a real tricky thing for me. You know, because I've been into the rooms a couple of times and I heard them talking about God. Like I said, my mom was a religious person, and she really tried to give that to us. but it didn't work for me. You know, and with all these things that had occurred in my life, oh my God, you know, I had perfect relationships. Why were they taken away from me? He must have had something to do with it. I was angry. I didn't want a thing to do with God. I'm so glad that they put that in as I understand it. Of course, we weren't really talking about God yet. We were still talking about that higher power and defining that higher power. Well, what's that higher power, Keith? Well, in the beginning, they related it to my alcoholism. Keith, alcohol is your higher power. Has been for years. What do you mean? It made me mad. Keith, you know, where have you lived? Anytime you've moved, where have you settled at? These were people that already knew part of my history. Well, typically I had to have an apartment that was, you know, within a block or two of a bar. You know, some of these other things, you know, they were more important in my mind. Why didn't I have custody of my children? Because I couldn't put the substance on. That I made that substance my higher power. It was telling me what to do. It was guiding me. Could something restore me to sanity? There have been those fleeting moments earlier where I thought everything's going to be okay. But they were real quick. And then the crap that hits the fan again. I can't remember what those are called, but I remember that they were so fleeting. Just little hints. Little hints. So I started, you know, and they said, Keith, you know, you don't have to believe, you don't have to buy all of this at once. Take it a little bit at a time. Stick around. Don't leave before the miracle happens. Talk to us. Share with us. Let us help you. We moved on to that step 3, made a decision to turn a will in our life. I want to go back there. In my first recovery, these 2 steps are the ones that I skipped on. The higher power and turning my will and my life over. Sure, I'll do it. You know, kind of gave it lip service. But the big book tells me about that. Roland H. and there's Carl Young again. Roland H. and Carl Young. You know, Roland couldn't understand why he was drunk again. After all, he was a good church member. But the word that popped up was nominal. He only gave it lip service. So when I come to believe in a power greater than myself, I have to commit to that. I can't just say, yeah, okay, you know, and still do what I want. I have to turn my will and my life over to that power. Working with others, it tells me the main thing is that he believed in a power greater than himself and he'd be willing to live by spiritual principles. Wait, well, hold on. Okay, now, you said, okay, I can believe in a higher power. Now, what's this thing about spiritual principles? Well, that's those little principles behind each one of the steps. Well, why do I need those? Keith, they're going to help you live better. I'm doing okay. No, you're not, Keith. No, you're not. You're only on step 3. How can you be okay? Well, because I'm humble at that point. I had my butt beat. Alcohol won. I was broke, hopeless. That fetal position, curled up in a ball. I don't want it to happen, but I know it's going to. How sickening. And then have to carry on like nothing happened. I was broke. And that's where I got into the step forward. My shortcomings and my character defects. These were the things, these were the results of my addiction. You know, not caring about people. Ultra independence. I can do this myself. The character defect. Resentments. You know, I'd just come in. You know, I was humble. I don't have any resentments. Yes, you do. I'm so grateful for the men in these rooms that helped me to address these things. Book says these are questions we all have to ask ourselves. So in step one, I had to ask myself, am I an alcoholic? Am I really that alcoholic? And then I read the description of the real alcoholic. Yeah, I'm the real alcoholic. That faith thing in the second step, honesty, hope, that came hard. Turning my will and my life over came real hard too. At first it was just a group. You know, group of drunks, good orderly direction. These people weren't getting in trouble anymore. They weren't being thrown in jail. They weren't losing their jobs. They weren't in divorce court. They were well dressed. They had transportation. These were all things that I wanted. But I could never quite seem to hang on to that stuff. Keith, we're going to help you. We're going to teach you about these principles. In my first recovery, as I said, I kind of skimped on those two. You know, but life got better. And I managed to stay sober for 7 years. I considered myself to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in the rooms, I was doing service work, I was sponsoring men, I was doing all the things I needed to do, but I hadn't gotten the higher power. And at 7 years sober, that thought came in. I didn't talk about it. Well, I did talk about it. I actually went to my sponsor and told him I was thinking about drinking again. Talked to several other people about it. And they, you know, of course, they're all like, Keith, you sure that's a good idea? Well, yeah, man. Well, here comes Roland H. again, Carl Young. I completed treatment. It'll never be like that again. I know how my body reacts. I know how my mind reacts. I'll be okay. Back in divorce court with a woman who had 13 years of sobriety when I met her. I was super angry at her because she left. As soon as she found out I was drinking, she was gone. Well, how dare she? She made a commitment to me. See where that resentment comes in? I'm such a fine, upstanding fella. I had to learn. That fourth step takes a lot of courage. Looking at myself. I spent so many years looking at everybody else, I couldn't see me. You know, plus the fact I didn't want to look at me. I was just on autopilot, I guess. I didn't pay attention to the things I did. I didn't look at the reasons that I did them. I didn't look at the consequences. That Peter Pan syndrome. It was keeping me young. I found a lot of stuff in the fourth step. You know, how practicing those principles. You know, as I learned the principle from one step, I carried it into the next one. On and on. And those 12 character principles, by the time I got to the 12th step, I had practiced and incorporated those 12 principles in my life. That relapse was horrid. I thought the first time was bad. Wow. Jails, hospitals, institutions, death. You know, started spending time in jail. Died in a little hospital in some city, Arizona. Not from a drug overdose, but from alcohol withdrawal. How much was I drinking? That fifth step, you know, talking with another alcoholic, like telling these things. My first fifth step, it was such a relief. You know, the book says that we can look the world in the eye again, and I really felt like that. You know, I've been such a piece of crap for a long time, you know. I first came into the program when I was 35, and then went back out when I was 42, and didn't come back in again until I was 50. A lot of wasted time there. I dove in again. January 18th, actually. I'd moved back from Arizona. I'm sure one time. I'd moved back from Arizona because I said it was because my dad was sick. But in reality, I lost everything again. Everything. Had a $190,000 house gone. Had a motorcycle gone. Had a Dodge pickup truck gone. Relationships gone. Job. I was unemployable. I was blacklisted for the last 3 years that I was in Arizona. Unreliable. What are you talking about, unreliable? I was always there. Yeah, Keith, but you were 3 sheets in the wind. Go figure. Go figure. But I continued through those steps. And life this time has gotten better. Brian talked, I'm going to try and wrap up here real quick. Brian talked about a year ago. These last year and a half have been a real episode for me. It's been quite a bit of adventure. In July of last year, I had a house fire. Burnt me out. Didn't expect that. As it's burning, I'm standing there just kind of watching it, you know, going, yeah, okay, well, things come, things go. You know, I've replaced stuff before, I guess I'll just replace it again. Meanwhile, there's about 15, 16 people just running around going absolutely nuts, screaming and yelling. Emotional sobriety. Surprised me. I didn't expect that. Less than a month later, August 6th, that would have been last weekend. Coming out of here on a Saturday night, right here in this intersection, got slammed. Got thrown about 25 feet through the air, broke me. Bless. Had a couple other medical issues, wreckage in my past. Had a heart condition for, probably a good 30 years. We finally took care of that. 100% successful. I had another issue with my kidneys. Threatening, life-threatening, for about a year and a half. We finally got that taken care of. This has all happened within the last year. That house that got burned. People came out of the woodwork. Alcoholics Anonymous came out of the woodwork, helped me. And this is what the program has done for us. My landlord didn't want me to move. Man, when I was, I don't know about you, but my addictions, they was telling me to go. But she didn't want me to move. So she moved me into another place. Doing the right thing. The motorcycle accident. That wasn't my first motorcycle accident. I've broken my back 3 times now. What was so incredible about that is I had a lot of back pain from the first 2. And I got hit that night, and when I heal, I'm completely healed. There's no pain. God has been good to me. My higher power has been incredible. And I get to give back today. I get to give back to the program. You know, I get to work with a group of people over at Fellowship Home. You know, helping to keep their doors open. I spent 7 years working for Westbrook in the substance use disorder sections, Amity and Exodus. One of the greatest things I ever did. Opened up my mind. I mean, we talk about open-minded. You know, before I was a strict 12-step big book thumper. There is only one way. You know, working with Westbrook, I understand today there's more than one path up that mountain. And the only one wasting time is the one running around down at the bottom telling everyone theirs is wrong. I don't want to tell anybody that their recovery is wrong today. I want to help. I have the love of my family today. Those 4 children, we have awesome relationships today. And believe it or not, I even talk to those exes. All except one. I can't find her. And that's okay. She probably doesn't want to be found. I'll let that slide. So yeah, I got to retire 2 years ago. I never ever thought that would happen. Yet this is how my higher power works in my life. Not just now, but he's been there all along. That retirement, I spent every penny. Whenever I left a job, I took whatever money there was and it got drunk. Right? Well, apparently there was one company that I worked for that took that out of my hands. They didn't give me access. So that fund sat there for 25 years. And I was able to retire. Awesome. Grace. If you're here tonight, keep coming back. You know, if you're not sure, that's okay. You know, you'll figure it out one way or another. Life is good today. And like I said, it does have its ups and downs. You can see the examples there. You know. And there was some financial hardships there too, with taking care of some of those processes. But because of the things I've learned in these rooms, I'm not in conflict today. I'm not fighting with society. I can still be who I am. I fit in. And that's all I ever really wanted. Just to fit in. It's good to be here tonight. I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you again for 12-7.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate you sharing your experience. So everybody coming out tonight, please be in Parkersburg.